Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Central. If you're watching online, we welcome you. Why don't we all stand and sing? It's going to be a great morning. Go! There's one thing I'm asking, one thing I'm needing. Moment that's passing, it's not what I'm seeking. Like it's the air I'm breathing, I want your presence. Feet on the earth, heart full of heaven. See for you, completely consumes me. I can't get enough, I can't get enough of you. Your fire burning right through me. I can't get enough, I can't get enough of you. Can't get enough of you. Can't get enough of you. Get your hands up. I'm after the spirit. It's more than a feeling, and I don't need a reason to keep chasing who you are. Like it's the air I'm breathing, I want your presence. Feet on the earth, heart full of heaven. Zeal for you completely consumes me. I can't get enough, I can't get enough of you. Your fire burning right through me. I can't get enough, I can't get enough of you. Can't get enough of you. Can't get enough of you. Every beat is yours, so sing that. Every beat is yours, you can have it all. Take over like only you can. All I'm reaching for, you and nothing more. Take over like only you can. Every beat is yours, you can have it all. Take over like only you can. All I'm reaching for, you and nothing more. Take over like only you can. This last time. 1, 2, 1, 2, let's go. Zeal for you completely consumes me. I can't get enough, I can't get enough of you. Your fire burning right through me. I can't get enough, I can't get enough of you. Can't get enough of you. Can't get enough of you. Now the darkness fades into new beginnings as we lift our eyes to a hope beyond. All creation waits with an expectation to declare the reign of the Lord our God. We will not be moved when the earth gives way. For the risen one is overcome. And for every fear, there's an empty grave. For the risen one is overcome. Now the silence breaks in the name of Jesus. As the heavens cry, let the earth respond. voice of triumph to declare the reign of the Lord our God. We will not be moved when the earth gives way, for the risen one is overcome. And for every fear there's an empty grave, for the risen one is overcome.
Come on, sing it with me. He shall reign forever. Sing that out.
He shall reign forever. Strongholds now surrender, for the Lord our God has overcome. Who can be against us? Jesus, our defender. He is Lord and he has overcome. He shall reign forever. Strongholds now surrender, for the Lord our God has overcome. Who can be against us? Jesus, our defender. He is Lord and he has overcome.
We will not be moved when the earth gives way, for the risen one is overcome.
And for every fear there's an empty grave, for the risen one is overcome. We will not be moved when the earth gives way, for the risen one is overcome. And for every fear there's an empty grave, for the risen one is overcome. He is
Yes, God, you have overcome. You have overcome our fears and our struggles. And as we find ourselves in chaos sometimes, we just want a way out. And that way is Jesus. So as we sing this next song, let's have that hope in mind. That there is a way. Let's sing this together.
I sing praises to your name, praises to your name, the name that's so much higher than all names.
thank you this morning for who you are, for how much you love us, for the purpose and the plan that you have for our lives, God. That even when we are in the midst of chaos, we can put our focus on you. We can fix our eyes on you. We can lift you up to be that beacon of hope that you are in our lives, God, but we can choose to see that every single day. So God, we thank you. We thank you for your grace, for your love, for your patience with us. We thank you for your purpose for our lives. In Jesus' mighty name. And everyone said, amen. Well, thank you guys so much for singing with us. Why don't you go ahead and grab a seat?
Well, welcome to Central this morning. If you're feeling a little nervous after seeing that, wondering if you're going to have to slip and slide down the aisles or something like that, no, that was our junior high summer camp, which happened just over a week ago. A bunch of my kids were at it. They had an absolute blast, lots of life change, lots of stories of life change, and just can't express enough how amazing all of the volunteers and staff that ran that camp and allowed a lot of kids, almost 100, to have an amazing week of experiencing life change while having, as you saw, a ton of fun. So that's just one little snapshot of some of what happens here at Central as helping our young people come to know Jesus better. My name's Jen, I'm your host this morning, and if you are new here, that is something we're really passionate about, is helping introduce you to faith. Wherever that means, if you've never heard about Jesus before, if you walked in this morning because you happened to see the sign outside and were a little bit curious, or if you're further along in your faith journey and trying to figure out where you fit and how to grow deeper, we want to walk alongside you on that journey. So we are so glad you're here, whether joining us in person or online. If you are new, we would love it if you would fill out the blue card in front of you that says Connect. And if you're online, hit new here, and our online pastor would love to chat with you. We just want to give you a small gift as a token of our appreciation for braving it this morning or watching online. We'd love to just get that into your hands and then chat with you once over the week to see if there's any way we can serve you better. That's it. If you want to get more involved, you're welcome to, but just touch base. So if you would fill that out, we're going to get some baskets by in a few moments, and also if you'd rather, there's a big blue wall out in the lobby. You can just bring your Connect card right out there after this experience, and our volunteers would love to get you that gift and connect with you right there as well. So at this time, we're going to give together as a church family, so I'm going to invite our other hosts down as we give together. If you are new here or not part of our church family yet, please feel no obligation to give. This is something we do as a church family. If you are a regular giver, the ways to do so are on the screen. Another exciting thing that's been happening here at Central over the last few weeks, and next week is actually the last week to participate is Gift a Green. So these are really fun greeting cards. They're $10, and they actually grow little plants and sprouts that you can add to salads and sandwiches and give to people for a whole bunch of different occasions. Just a fun little way to say you're thinking of someone, or as part of a birthday card or gift or whatnot. They're $10, and actually that feeds 2 children in Niagara this fall. So really cool way to have just a tangible way to help here at Central. So I encourage you. I realize we've sold over we've made it so that 384 kids in Niagara this fall will be able to have a lunch, because I'm sure, as you can imagine, getting through a whole day with no food makes it very difficult to learn and to behave and to just have fun learning. So we're excited to try to get that to stop here in Niagara. Our goal is 500, and I realized as I was thinking backstage that if 20 people or 20 families from each experience this morning each purchased one, we would surpass our goal of feeding 500 children lunch this fall. So really encourage you to head to the missions desk after this experience and grab yourself one of those to feed some kids. Another thing we love at Central is volunteering. A lot of us just love being a part of this church and getting plugged in that way. And I'm going to invite my friend Dirk to come out and chat with us a bit. He volunteers in a bunch of different capacities, but the one we're going to talk about is his role as a small group, as a group leader. So Dirk, thanks so much. First, just wondering, what inspired you to get involved? Why does it matter?
Well, honestly, to tell you the truth, it's not me. I kept waiting for the Lord to kind of do stuff in my life, but my mind was just saying, no, Dirk, don't do it. Don't go on that leap of faith. Just don't do it. And it just kept doing. But after a while, the Lord just softened my heart, and I just kind of was in tune to those promptings, and then it was just a matter of saying, you know what, no. I'm going to be led by the Holy Spirit and start a change in a process. And so I guess that's what inspired me. I'm just going to give it to the Holy Spirit and say, that the Holy Spirit just showed up, and I was in tune to that, and I was like, okay, it's time to serve. So it's time to pick it up and start giving back to the community. So
That's awesome. And what's been the most exciting part about serving in this capacity?
Well, the most exciting part is seeing people that come here broken and with issues, and they're stressed about their jobs, they're stressed about their lives and finances and all that, and we could be so focused on that in our lives all the time. And getting into small groups and volunteering, it kind of just opens you up to what the Holy Spirit has in your life. And I guess the most inspiring thing is when that light bulb goes off in somebody's in their eyes. You can see it, that they realize that, wait a minute, I don't have to struggle. These problems that I have don't have to define who I am. And they realize who they are in Jesus Christ, and they can now be defined by the peace of the Holy Spirit. And it's amazing because it's life-changing, and it's a humbling thing to see week by week. So.
And what about for you? I know a lot of us serve so that we can serve others, but often get changed in the process. So how have you most been changed by serving?
I think in my heart, it's been thankfulness. So instead of coming in with expectations, is it too cool in the church, or is the lighting too dark, or whatever the issue may be, that's, you go in and you look and say, well, okay, even was the message that good, and you're critical of all that stuff. But for me, it's given me a heart of focus of thankfulness, to be thankful for every breath, and then to say, you know what, it's not about how I can be served, but it's being thankful to God for everything and realizing that we're ambassadors for Jesus Christ. So as we sit here, we say, no, I'm going to be thankful, and I'm going to serve and pray. And all of a sudden, we all become ambassadors of Jesus Christ. So in my life, it's that focus, taking off of myself and my own thoughts and wants, and just being thankful for where I am.
Yeah, that's so true. Such an important piece. And if you're inspired by this, as I'm sure you are, just next week, September 2nd, during our 12 p.m. experience, we have something called Next Steps. And it's a way just to let you know about what your next steps could be in getting plugged in even further by volunteering here at Central. So there's no pressure, but we'd love for you to come out at 12 p.m. next Sunday and just see what it's all about, see how you can get involved. Honestly, there is a place for you here. Whether your gifting is up front, whether it's greeting people, whether it's a friendly face as people pull into the parking lot, maybe you're really nervous about showing up here for the first time, or if it's behind the scenes and more administrative. Honestly, you are needed, you're wanted, you belong here. We would love to have you. Just see if there's a way that you're inspired to serve more. So come on out next week, 12 p.m., September 2nd, to Next Steps and see how you can be involved. So let's give Dirk a round of applause for everything he does here and coming out on stage this morning. So that's all from me this morning. We've been in the process of a really exciting message series. So I'm going to direct your eyes to the screen as we continue our series entitled Spicy.
Well, good morning. How's everybody doing? Yeah, good. Good to hear. Me too. Thanks for asking. Hey, we're so glad that you're here. If you're watching online from wherever you are around the world, thank you so much for being here today. And please feel free to interact with our online pastor. We're just really glad that you are here. And if you're here, whether this is your first time with us or you've been coming since you were born and you don't miss a Sunday, thank you for being here. We really, really appreciate you today. And we are in week 4 of a 5-week series entitled Spicy. And we just thought it would be nice to have a reasonable conversation about things that are kind of heated around our world today. And so we've tackled some light subjects up to this point. And today we're going to talk about environmentalism. I know, right? And so, from my background, we have all kinds of expressions in my household. In my household, we have vegans and we have meat eaters. We have people who use oils and people who use drugs and the good drugs. And we have people who think we should recycle clothing, which is a great idea, and those who only wear new clothing. And so I've got this large range, and so we have a lot of really interesting conversations. And today, the truth is probably a lot of this is going to seem a little bit simple, quite common sense. But what I've learned about common sense is it's not always very common. And so we're going to talk about the environment, and we're going to give you a framework to work with. I heard a story this week about this guy, and as he was about to go home, his wife called him and said, on your way home, can you pick up some vegetables for dinner? Make sure that they're organic. And he's like, yeah, okay, no problem. So he stops at a grocery store. He hadn't been to this one particular store before. And so he goes in and he can't find organic vegetables anywhere. And so he's really frustrated. So he finds someone who works at the store and he says, do you have any organic vegetables in this store? And the guy looked at him like he didn't understand what he was talking about. And he said, listen, this is for my wife. Are there any dangerous chemicals on these vegetables? And the guy looked around a little shocked and leaned in and said, no, sir, you have to do that yourself. Wait for it. Okay, all right. I don't know if it's early in the morning, but we're so glad that you're here to talk about this. The drugs, the chemicals, kill his wife. Never mind. If I have to explain the punchline, it's not that funny. It's not that funny. Rule number 1. Yeah. Let's all give a round of applause to all those who just, thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us, Carrie Lynn. Okay, anyway, so we're so glad that you are here, but we're going to talk about the environment today. And in week number 1, we learned about identity. What we learned was that when we define people with labels, whether it's a racial label, a demographic label, we actually isolate and we lose our humanity. And so we talked about humanity, and Pastor Johnny talked about how I see you. It was really powerful. And then in week number 2, we talked about government, and we talked about authority. And the proper use of authority is meant to elevate and the proper response to authority. So that was week number 2. And then last week, honestly, if you missed last week, I really want to encourage you to go back and watch it online. Pastor Justin talked a lot about acceptance and inclusion, and really very well articulated the position we have as a church family, that if you're an honest journey towards who God created you to be, that you're included. It was really powerful. And so, yeah, if you missed that, I want to encourage you to go back and watch that. But today, we're going to talk about environmentalism, and kind of the key takeaway is accountability. Now, I know when we talk about these controversial subjects, it's easy just to kind of lean into your own bias and use a lot of rhetoric and just call people out, for being stupid. And we really aren't about that here. So I'm going to give you some ground rules, okay? Because I know I'm going to stir some thoughts, and you're probably going to have some conversations, maybe even around what you eat today or how you recycle tonight. We're going to talk about those things. And so I just need to establish some ground rules to help us navigate this and all love each other at the same time. Okay. So in this series, we are really not trying to be controversial. Now, I know on the marquee outside, we have used intentionally controversial labels and titles. We have, because we wanted to spark some thinking around that, and it's worked. And thank you for the emails, especially those who don't even come here, but thank you for that. But our goal really wasn't just to be controversial. It really wasn't. It was really a desire to be conversational. We believe that we should be humble enough in conversation to acknowledge that we could be wrong. That is a possibility. Maybe you don't hit the person next to you, but that is a possibility, right? You could be wrong, and we could actually learn something from each other if we would open our ears and shut our mouth and listen to each other's perspective. It could be actually really helpful. And so last week, again, Pastor Justin talked really well about this polarization idea that when we polarize around extreme viewpoints, it pulls us apart. And when our common ground decreases, we don't really have anything to talk about, and we disassociate. And that's never healthy. And so how do we unify around some common themes or ideas? And the other thing was really powerful. I thought maybe the most powerful thing about last week was this idea of grace and truth. That here at Central, we are passionate about truth. You need to know that. We are we are pursuing truth wherever it's found. But we also want to be people of grace. And what we learned is that these are really powerful together when we are gracious enough to treat each other with dignity and respect, and we're passionate enough to pursue truth in a way that empowers. I think that's really powerful. But when you separate these two, when you say, I'm just all about the truth and it's your truth, or you're all about grace and there's no truth, that's kind of like an animal without a skeleton. It falls apart very quickly. You need both, and so they're destructive apart. And so we're not honestly trying to be controversial. We're trying to start conversations. And so if you talk about this week at some point with somebody, we will have succeeded in our goal today. The other thing you need to know is that we're not trying to tell you what to think. I think sometimes people come into settings like this and they say, well, Bill, just tell me what you think or what I should think. Or they even say, well, what does the Bible say? And those are helpful, but it's more helpful if we can give you a framework on how to think. Because when I tell you what to think, it immediately limits and narrows our options and possibilities. And so we're not really trying to do that. So whether you think, all vegans are hippies, or whether you think all meat eaters are animals, really we're trying to have a conversation that's helpful for everybody by not telling you not what to think, but how to think about it. And then the final one is that we're not trying to establish a set of rules we want to enforce. What I've learned with controversial subjects where there's diverging viewpoints, when we try to establish who's in and out, it actually alienates us from the real issues. So we're not trying to give you rules that we want to enforce. Rather, we want to give you principles that each of you should be able to take and then interpret into your own context. Now, all that being said, we do believe that there is a framework. You have to have a starting point. It's like building a house. You have to have a foundation to build the rest of the house. And so for us, we do have a foundation. And this kind of is our framework that we've been working with. And we feel it covers every one of these controversial subjects. And here's our framework. We believe that every human being, that's you, that's me, you watching online, every human being, regardless of what you believe, regardless of your lifestyle, regardless of what your life situation is, we believe that every human being is created in the image of God. And why that's really important to us is because you're not just random, that you actually were created and designed with purpose, that you're actually really powerful. And maybe you came into this place and you feel hopeless or lost or aimless or frustrated. We want to remind you that you actually have a purpose, that you're not a mistake. And because of that, you have dignity and value, and so we'll treat you as such. We will extend dignity and value to you, and we ask that you extend dignity and value to us in return, that you have purpose and power, that there's a reason you're here right now. And then finally, that you have the freedom of choice. The truth is, you can do with what we're going to talk about, you can do anything you want with it, but also know that with every choice, there's a consequence. And we mean that in the most loving way. Just understand that everything you do has a consequence, has a ripple effect. And so whether your environmental view is to preserve the earth, or whether you feel like you don't need to worry about that, the truth is we need to understand that our choices have consequences. And so that's why it's central. Here's what we believe. For this reason, we will celebrate what is best about humanity. There's enough bashing going around, truth be told. There's enough people ripping each other apart. We just don't want to be a part of that. We actually believe Jesus came to restore human beings and to restore hearts and restore minds and restore people and restore the world. And so we're going to celebrate what is the best about humanity. When we see something we're celebrating, we're going to celebrate it. And we are going to seek to discover God's intent for creating us. We believe that's important, and we will take responsibility for the choices that we make. So when we make bad choices, we will be honest and own up to that and take responsibility for it. And learn from it and grow from it. And when we see things in each other that we can call out that's better, we will do that. But that's the framework, okay, for the conversation that we're going to have today. So, the question I want to ask when it comes to the environment, okay, whether it's what you eat, what you wear, how you live your life, what you do with your waste, we're going to ask this question: can I do whatever I want? I think this is actually a very dangerous platform that has been elevated in our culture today. Don't you tell me what to do. I can do whatever I want, right? And it's not just 2-year-olds, okay? I've seen 22-year-olds and 42-year-olds and 72-year-olds. Don't tell me what to do. I can do whatever I want. Well, the truth is, yes, technically you can, but there's a consequence. So how do we respond to this? So let's start, for us, what is the foundation? And we believe that Jesus is the Word and that the Bible points to Him. And so I'm going to take you through 3 passages that we find in the Bible that kind of give you the overarching theme of what the Bible thinks about this issue. And I think it'll be helpful. The first one we find in Genesis chapter 2. And in the very beginning, so this is the very first book of the Bible. If you're not familiar with the Bible, it's not one book. It's actually 66 books compiled into one. And the first book in the Bible isn't the oldest one. It's just put in an order because it's the story of beginnings. And you can have all kinds of interpretations around this, but we're going to drive to the principle. And so it says here that God took man and put him in the Garden of Eden. This is this idea that God created this world for you and I to enjoy. And Eden symbolizes this idealized world, a world where, there's no hunger and no killing and no deceit. It represents what is possible when we're our best selves and when we follow the way that God designed this world to work. And maybe you're here and say, well, I don't believe that God designed anything. Well, maybe not. But even if you believe in science, you know that there are laws. The laws of physics. There are things that make this world work. And if those laws are violated, which they can't be, but if they are violated, it'll mess everything up. So the way the earth is tilted, the way the earth spins, the way that ecosystems work, when we tamper with that, when we mess with those laws, there are severe consequences. And that's what happened when people decided we didn't need to follow the order. We could and they brought chaos. So the Garden of Eden, to work it, and here's the key: take care of it. So you can't avoid the reality that the Bible teaches this idea that there's something bigger than you. You may not believe the way necessarily we do yet, that there's a God. We do, but we all, I think, have this sense that there's something bigger than us. And the word God, I'm going to use the small g version of it, really can be identified as anything that doesn't depend on anything else. So we believe that there is a being, a personal being who doesn't depend on anything else and created this amazing world and created you and put you in it for your well-being because he loves you. And he asks simply that you take care of it. The Psalms, in the middle of the Bible, it's a book of songs and poems, writes it this way. In Psalm 24, it says, "The earth is God's and everything in it, the world and all who live in it." That's you and me. "For he founded it on the seas and established it on the waters." And so, there's this idea that there's something greater and we are responsible. You are accountable for what you do with the gift that you have been given. So here's the principle the Bible teaches, that God created the world as a gift for us, and we are accountable for it. I was thinking, what I'm about to say is not directed to any teenagers who are here. It's my experience as a teenager. And I learned something about being a teenager in my parents' home and now as an owner of a home. When you're a teenager, at least in my experience, I didn't really fully appreciate it. Mom, if you're watching, and I know you do every week, I love you. Thank you for sending me texts every week telling me how awesome I am. So even when you send me your email Monday, my mama tells me I'm great, so it doesn't matter. Love you, Mom. But when I was a teenager, I didn't really always respect or appreciate her. And I hate to admit it, I was a bit of a troubled child. I know some of you have a really hard time believing that. Others of you have no problem believing that. But I was a bit of a troubled child, and so as a teenager, I really didn't respect the environment that I had been placed in. I really was incredibly blessed with an amazing home. But I didn't think of it that way, and I also knew that my mom would always clean up after me. So I had no problem leaving stuff around, not cleaning my room, not helping with the dishes, never cooking, never cleaning anything, just living the perfect life, right? And I know no other teenagers are like that in this room. Parents, just bite your lip. If you need medical attention, it's at the first aid center. But I didn't appreciate it. And so as a result, I trashed the house a lot. Like I broke things and I didn't ever replace them. And I had this very different approach to the house that I'd been placed in. Now that I'm an owner, I have a very different view of the house and the environment that I'm in. And I don't have teenagers anymore. They're all grown up and left us. Why do they do that to us? But they do. It's good. No, it's a good thing. And I have an appreciation. So when we go away now, we'll get someone to house sit. Right? And so we have a little dog, and so someone needs to take care of Kiko. And we have flowers and plants that my wife has worked really hard. I try to help. I kill things. But she makes things living, and so they're living, and we have a pool, and so all these things. So when someone comes to our house, and they're a house sitter, our expectation, and I think it's reasonable, is don't kill anything, don't ruin anything, right? Like, I think that's a reasonable expectation. Please, try to treat it like as if it was your own home. The reason I use that illustration is because I find that there are two approaches to this world. And one approach is that you're here and you can just do whatever you want. You have the teenager approach. No disrespect to teenagers, because I know you're not like that here. The teenagers at Central are perfect. But I'm just talking about in general. You have a teenager approach to the world and you go, well, it doesn't matter if I don't recycle. It doesn't matter if I trash the environment. It doesn't matter if whatever I do, because someone's going to come and clean it up after me. And not only is that a disrespectful way to look at the world, it's also a disrespectful way to look at yourself. Because it means that you don't care enough about yourself to care about the environment that you live in. And actually, we all want to mature beyond that. And so the better way to think about it from the biblical perspective is that we're house sitters. We've been given this gift. The old English word is to steward it, to take care of it. So how are you doing? Do you ever think about that? Probably not. The truth is, if I'm honest, probably most of us as North Americans think about it very little, maybe too little. In school, they think about it because they force you to, which is actually a really good thing. But do we think about it that way? And do we think about the next generation and the generation after that and the generation after that? And you think, oh, that's 4 generations away. I don't care. Well, you should. You should, because it's your responsibility. And that's what mature people do. They take care of the things that they've been entrusted with. So how should we think about the environment? Well, let me give you 2 extremes that I think are dangerous, and I'll explain why they are and why you should stay away from them, but there's lots of room in the middle, okay? So again, using this idea of God, there are 2 dangerous worldviews, and the first one is that nature is God, And we know this isn't true because if you don't take care of your backyard, it's going to default into chaos, right? This nature is dependent on a lot of things. And so it can't be God, and nor is humanity God. When we believe nature is God, we kind of, and I came across this in my study, and it's actually kind of sickening, really, is one of the extreme solutions is wipe out human beings. And you think, no one said that. No, they actually say that. Kill human beings. They came up with this number of how many human beings would be perfect for the world. I think it was like 600,000. So the idea was, well, kill everybody else. And I'm like, well, are you going to be first? Like, right? Okay, so that is not a solution, people. Every human life is valuable. On the other hand, you have this idea that humanity is God and I can do whatever I want. And you just can't. Because the earth isn't a disposable garbage dump. It's an ecosystem. And it is fragile. It's incredibly resilient and tough, but it also deserves respect. So I think in order to find the place where we should land on this is we need to kind of get some facts. And maybe you've heard this before, and so I know it may seem a little bit redundant to some of you, but I think it's worth just opening our eyes to the reality. The reality is that right now in our world, about 50,000 species of animals are becoming extinct every year in our tropical forests. Just to put it into perspective, that's 137 a day. There are species of animals that we will never encounter or ever experience because we wiped them out. Now, if you're an evolutionist, you probably should celebrate that because they didn't deserve to live. But as someone who believes that the world is worthy of dignity, we think that's something to think about. Also, you may not know this, but in our rainforests, we cut 100 acres per minute. 100 acres per minute. That's not only to supply paper products, but also to provide grazing ground for cattle. And as a result of that, 1.6 thousand acres of usable land is becoming a desert every day. Now, I don't know if you've ever visited a desert. I don't know if you've ever thought about living in one. I don't think you want to. But that's what's happening to our planet. And plastic bags, they kill 1 million sea creatures every year. Our plastic bags kill 1 million sea creatures every year. Now, maybe you don't care about that. I do. I think that's at least paying attention to or notice to. And so there's this push against plastic straws right now. And you say, oh, it's just one straw. Who cares? Yeah, it's one straw times 6 million people. Billion, right? It matters. So what do we do with these facts? Well, I'm going to give you the flip side of it too, though, because there is a dangerous side of some of the facts. The first is that there are some conflicting reports. I really wish that people were always pure in their motivation. I wish that when people were a champion for something, it was because they really wanted what was best for the world. But unfortunately, and maybe this is a pessimistic worldview, but I've just learned that people are actually kind of self-interested. And I've learned that sometimes when you hear a fact, it's been twisted or skewed for some political agenda or for some personal reason. I just acknowledge that there are lobbyists who get paid lots of money and give a lot of money to political parties so that those political parties win so that they can keep doing what they are doing. And it has nothing to do with really the environment or what is right or wrong. It has everything to do with the bottom line, which is their money. I think we have a lot of oppressive companies that take advantage of our environment. And so if I'm honest, myself included in this, we as human beings default to greed. We default to what is best for me. And that's a very dangerous spot. And so when you read facts, you got to be careful because not everything is factual. Just because you read it on the internet, it does not mean it's true. Just a little help there, or on Facebook. Okay. The second thing is our own personal bias. Change is really hard. And so this is a complicated issue. It's not simple. So we know that carbon emissions are a problem. We know that. But we just can't wipe out every car on the earth either because we built entire cities around this kind of transportation. And so it's not as simple as maybe it looks at first. It's very complicated. And we also have this thing called convenience. I love my processed food. I just do. It's easy, right? It's easier than actually having to make something from scratch. And so we have a convenience issue in plastic. And so I was at Costco the other day with my son and his girlfriend, And for the first time, we were reading labels and I'm just becoming aware that, wow, okay, there may be some things that we can address. We like meat. This is a very sensitive issue for a lot of people. And I'm not telling you what to think. I'm just giving you a framework just to think about it, that it's complicated and you have a personal bias. And so it might help you to listen or hear the other side, at least to form an opinion on it. And then we have apathy as well. I don't think we really think about population growth. I don't think we think enough about deforestation or global warming. I don't think we actually think about the reality that in North America, 80% of the products that we buy, we throw away and put into landfill. We use them once, and then they become landfill. And actually, you maybe didn't know this, but most of our landfill goes to other parts of the world. And those poor parts of the world are suffering because of our landfill. You just need to know that. I'm not telling you what to think about it. I'm just telling you that you need to be aware of that. And then there's sensationalism. The media, of course, knows that bad news sells. And so, everything is sensational, right? And so, if you hear about shark attacks, very few people actually get killed by sharks. But if you were to listen to the media, everybody dies from a shark attack. And so sensationalism and bad news sells. And so we have this problem. And the problem with sensationalism is that guilt is only short term. And so if you ever tried to guilt somebody, that doesn't work. So we need to have a conscience and we need to think about these things and be civil in them. And what I also learned in my study, which I found fascinating, is actually the world is getting better. Now if you don't believe me, I want you to go online and look up Gapminder. Hans Rosling, a Swedish guy, which immediately makes him awesome. Hans Rosling has all these graphs showing how the world is getting better in a lot of areas in our economies. There used to be a huge gap between the poor and the rich. They called it the two-hump camel. Now that is shrinking, and so the middle class is actually getting better. And so whether you think that's good or not, I think it's good that wealth is being more evenly distributed. Girls in our world are getting almost caught up now to boys in their opportunities to be educated. There are still some countries in the dark ages, but more and more countries are adopting. More girls are being educated, which I think is a really good thing. There are some really positive statistics around how people are living longer and we're actually healthier. So you got to balance this. Steven Pinker also is great. If you've never read any of his stuff or watched him on TED Talks, both these guys are on TED Talks. You can follow there, but it's really important. So I guess what I'm saying is just think about it. Think about it, because here's what I've learned. The principle is that we as followers of Jesus should actually be the most passionate about the environment. Why would I say that? Well, because we believe that He created it, He owns it, and we also believe that we're accountable for what we do with it, and we also believe that He came into this world to restore people and this world. He actually talked about this thing called the kingdom of God. It was, again, this idea of Eden, that if we would love each other instead of fighting each other, if we would elevate people instead of crushing them, if we would treat each other with respect rather than disdain, that actually this world could be restored to something better. And so, as a follower of Jesus, I should be passionate about this. The Bible says it this way in Colossians chapter 1, verses 16 and 17. It says, "For in Him," speaking of Jesus, "all things were created." So if your house sitting in Jesus' house, how would you treat it? If you knew He was going to come back and say, "Hey, how did you do with my house?" How would you treat it? That's an important thing to think about. Or things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities, all things have been created through Him and for Him. So really quickly, practically, what can you do with this thought process and this framework? Well, I think the first thing you need to do is educate yourself. You actually have to care about the issues. And if you've never spoken to a vegan, speak to one. Talk to one. Ask them, why? And you might be surprised with their answer. Actually, you might be challenged to change the way you think. Or talk to somebody who recycles. Why do you recycle? It's such a pain. I got to go out, and it's just so easy. Just dump it in one place as opposed to 3 places. Well, so why do you recycle? Well, I recycle because I can. And because if it makes the world better, why wouldn't I? Right? your excuse is you're lazy. That's your reason. I don't recycle because I'm lazy. Like I'm sorry, there's no other way around it. Well, or you say, well, the government, it's some scam. Oh, come on. Really? Like they got bigger things to worry about than your recycling habits. Anyway, so educate yourself. Find out what is really happening and why people are having these positions, and can we do something about the plastic in the oceans? And could I maybe rethink buying used clothing instead of new clothing? Could I rethink whatever? Just think. Please. For the love of God, think, people. And then the second thing is you can change your habits. And this is the hardest. I don't know. I'm learning this. The older I get, the crustier I get. I mean, I don't know why it is. It just is. I just like things the way they are. And I'm not very flexible anymore, physically, emotionally. And anyway, I just like things the way they are. And so when a new idea comes along, I'm like, oh, that's just stupid, right? That's some new idea. But just think about what brought you here, a lot of new ideas. So you can change your habits. And what if you just changed one? What if out of this whole thing, you just decided to change one habit that makes the environment better? And if we all did that together, imagine if the Niagara region, everyone decided to just change one thing that would make the world better. Is that worth it? I hope you say yes. No, we want things worse. No, we like it the way it is. We love landfill. I mean, okay, all right. We like our plastic straws. Okay, a metal straw isn't going to kill you. Carry it around with you. I don't know, do something else, or ask for it. You don't need to drink with a straw. Here's what I learned. For thousands of years, people have lived without straws, and they made it. They made it. You're here. Your great-great-grandfather did not have a straw, and voila, you're here. It's okay. You can do it, people. You can do it. Thank you. I guess I kind of leaked over into what you should think. That was my fault, my bad. Actually, we're really passionate about this as a church family. I want to just tell you a couple things that we're doing. And again, could we do more? Of course. We also could do nothing. So we decided doing something is better than nothing. And we may not be able to change everything, but we can change some things. And so when you walk out today, you'll see that there are blue bins for recycling. So yes, I know, right? I know. Change the world. Actually, it's a way to change the world. And so when you leave, please put your cups in the recycling bin. They're right next to the garbage, so it's really not that hard, right? Just right there. Okay, good. Blue is the color, everybody. Blue. And so we recycle. We also buy fair trade coffee. Now you think, well, that's not a big deal. Well, it is to us, because what it means is that the growers who grow those coffee beans are actually getting more of the resources from the sale of that coffee. And that means that they can take care of their families better. And it means that their children don't have to work in the fields. And so their children can go to school. And because their kids can go to school, their kids are going to get better opportunities to break the cycle of poverty. So does it matter? Yes, it matters a lot. It matters a lot. And then even this Gift of Green initiative, you think, oh, it's not that big a deal. It's kind of a gimmicky thing. Well, first of all, try it. They're delicious, first of all. They're really awesome. And second, okay, so if I could feed a kid this year at school who wasn't going to get a meal if I didn't do something, would that be worth it? I don't care if it's gimmicky or not. I don't care how you frame it. Do something good. What's it going to cost you? A couple coffees at Starbucks, maybe one if you get like the loaded one, right? So what's more important, your loaded coffee or a child having a meal to eat? Like I'm just challenging you to think. I'm not telling you what to think. I'm just challenging you to think. Or another really cool thing that just happened for us is we've been doing work all over the world, and you may not know this because we don't talk about it too much. We try to walk this fine balance. Because I think sometimes when you do good, it's easy to feel really good about yourself and you exploit people because you talk about your story, how good you are. And that's not what I want to do here. I just want to tell you what we do. When you give here as a part of our family, a large portion of that goes to actually help needs all around the world. And we have a couple of initiatives, and we started one in Kenya a long time ago. And as a result, we went into some of the remote Maasai villages. And the Maasai are nomadic, and they still love their cattle. And so the men are gone weeks, sometimes months at a time, finding grazing ground for these cattle. And in the meantime, we found the problem was that the women left in their villages with their children were malnourished. They had nothing to eat, and so kids were dying of preventable diseases, which I just think if we can do something about, we should. So we did. Well, I didn't. We did. It was before me. And so we went in, we taught them how to build gardens, and we gave them seeds, and we built irrigation systems, and we taught them how to treat the land well and how to feed themselves. And as a result, their kids started being healthy. We built a clinic. And again, we trained everyone locally to do it. So there's not a foreign influence. We helped them get on their feet, and then we stepped back, and they did that. And then these kids were now feeling well, and they didn't have to work, so they were going to school, but they didn't have any place to live, and so we built dorms for the kids, and we built an education system, and we were able to transform an area, not because we were great, but just because we did what was common sense. You see a need and you do it, and so this year we're going to Laos, which is fascinating because it's a closed country. It doesn't let foreigners in to do this stuff, but we're going in because in Cambodia, in the last few years, we've been going into a village area that's been hugely impacted by a superhighway built by the Chinese through it to Thailand, and it's changing their whole world, and they're not equipped to handle it. And so we've gone and we've built, again, ecosystems for them to grow food, and we've helped their children by just building simple things like helping them build latrines and organic water cleaning systems so their kids aren't sick with dysentery. And now, because they have a better way to farm, their kids don't have to work in the fields, they're going to school. And in Cambodia, there's this funny law that you can't go to school without a uniform. There you go. So we give these kids a uniform. Are we heroes? No. No, we're not. We're just people who care about the world. And so we've just made a decision. Wherever we can do something, we're going to do it. Wow, okay, someone didn't like that. Was that like a gun? Or I don't know. Okay. Because we're going to do something about it because we can. So let me just close with three. Oh, sorry, yeah, be a champion for the good. Sorry. So let me close with 3 thoughts for you, and I want you to think about this while you eat. Wherever you go today, if you go to a restaurant or you go home, I want you actually to talk about what you're eating. So kids, you're going to have to help your parents with this, okay? They're a little stubborn, so you just say, hey, Mom and Dad, Pastor Bill said, so we have to. And so I want you to think about that this week when you're buying things, okay? I want these 3 questions just to kind of resonate in your mind. So the first one is, are you a consumer or a caretaker? What are you? And maybe you're one and you'd like to be the other, and that's just a conscious decision. This isn't radical, it's just a decision. What am I going to be? The second thing we need to think about is, are you striving for comfort? I love my comfort, I'm not gonna lie, okay, people? I love my holidays, but something inside of me says, okay, it's okay to do that. But if I could also take some of those resources and use them to make this world a better place, why wouldn't I do that? Right? A beach will come and go, but a child's life can be changed in a generation forever. So, what's more important? I'm not saying don't be comfortable, because the truth is we can all cut back and still be very comfortable. But we're striving for comfort or for a calling. Do you know why you're here on this earth? The third thing I want you to think about is, are you living for convenience? And this one got me, because if you go to my office right now, I've got shelves full of processed food because it's convenient when I'm on the run or hungry, and I was challenged with this. Maybe I need to rethink that a little bit. Am I living for convenience or with a conscience? And so when you have these discussions and someone doesn't want to talk about it, that's okay, let it go. But it just exposes the reality that maybe they're not open to being a world changer. Or if you've pushed back and you just say, well, it's always been this way, or don't tell me what to think, I just want to encourage you to broaden your mind a little bit around this area. Why? Well, because Colossians 3:17 sums it all up really well for me. And it says, whatever you do. So I don't know, I looked up whatever in the Greek, and the English translation is whatever. So whatever you do, what you eat, what you wear, how you buy, how you think about the world, what you do with the resources you have, whatever you do, in word, don't just talk about it, because a lot of people are good at talking about it, but in deed too. Do everything in the name of Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. So, why should we care about the environment? Well, because God does. And because it's the gift he's given you. And why should I do good? Because you can. I love the way Gandhi said it, be the good you want to see in the world. You can. And if we do it together, we can actually make a difference. We can actually change the way people think about themselves, think about this world, and we can give kids a future that they wouldn't have otherwise. And for me, that's worth fighting for. So God, thank you for this reminder. Again, a lot of this is common sense, and it's just thinking through these things. But for many of us, if we're honest, we just, in North America, don't think about it. Maybe because it's uncomfortable, because we realize if we do think about it, we'll have to change. Would you just help us with that? Or maybe we don't want to think about it because we just don't feel like we have the time, and yet what we do with our time leaves a legacy, and so it does matter. And so I just pray that you'd give us wisdom to do what is best for people, what is best for the world that you gave us. And I thank you that you gave us this incredible world. I was thinking about that the other day as I was just walking in nature, and I was amazed again, God, what an amazing world, perfectly balanced for me. You made it. And that I could be a part of that, share it with you, and share it with others. So I want to be a good steward. I want to be a good house sitter for you. Help me, I pray. In your name, amen. And so I bless you with one simple thought. This world is a gift. Treat it well. I bless you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.